Voter turnout for Germany's most consequential election in decades was a whopping 82.5%. And as expected, the CDU party and its sister Bavarian party, the CSU, prevailed with 28.5% of the vote share, an easy plurality. But coming in second was the Alternative für Deutschland, or AfD party, which secured almost 21% of the vote share, almost doubling its totals from the previous election. Founded just 12 years ago, the AfD party has experienced a meteoric rise, largely due to the current government's inability to deal with challenges facing Germany today. Hi, I'm Karla Jones, Vice President of ALEC Center for International Freedom, and I'm honored to be joined here today with Christiane von Czettritz und Neuhaus, who is the Deputy Head at the Division for the Policy Issues Institute for International Cooperation at the Hanns Seidel Stiftung in Bavaria, the think tank that's associated with Bavaria's CSU party, and Sibel Öztürk-Bastanoglu, who's the head of the Division for Western Europe, North America, European Policy Issues, Institute for European and Transatlantic Dialogue, also at the Hanns Seidel Stiftung. Welcome, ladies.
Hi.
Christiane, what message do you believe that German voters were trying to send during last Sunday's election?
So first of all, thank you for having me. It's a great pleasure. Yeah, that's a good question. So I think the German people were dissatisfied with the so-called traffic light coalition. Traffic light because it was a coalition of three parties: the Social Democrats, which are the red ones, the Green parties, like that's why they're green, and the Liberals, which represent the color yellow. And they were dissatisfied mainly because of the economy, because there were 3 consecutive quarters of recession Germany is facing right now. Then there's dissatisfaction with the security, with regards to like inner security and defense security, and especially with regards to Ukraine, how our previous government handled it or not handled it, and the perceived insecurity we have when we look, for example, what happened just hours before the Munich Security Conference, where the terrorist attack happened in Munich. So it was the perceived insecurity in terms of inner security and also economy-wise. So I would say these are the main reasons. And also, we Germans don't like be told on what to do. And the previous government, they had some ideas, for example, with regards to a new law which says that if you need a new heating, you have to replace it with a more renewable or energy friendly heat pump, which is more energy friendly but also expensive. And because of the war in Ukraine, inflation rose because of energy prices, and we were decoupling from Russia. We Germans were not very happy about it. And also the Greens, for example, had the idea to introduce the Veggie Day in order to eat less meat, and also that didn't sit well with the German society. So all in all, I would say, yeah, it was a big satisfaction because of what the Traffic Light Coalition did in the past years.
At almost every single meeting we attended when I was in Munich, the heat pump issue came up, and it was explained that it's not only the cost of the heat pump, it's also the cost to get an older building energy efficient enough that a heat pump is sufficient to even heat it. and they were talking about costs exceeding like 100,000 euros just to get a heat pump and to do sufficient insulation. So, Christiana, the CDU-CSU came out on top in last week's elections. So could you tell us a little bit more about this sister party duo? Like, what are the differences between the CDU and CSU and what they stand for?
So I think the biggest difference is that the CSU is only in Bavaria, like in one state of Germany, and the CDU is in all other 15 states of Germany. It happened due to historical reasons. So back in the days after the war, they couldn't agree on one like outline, and so basically they split up, but are very, very similar in a lot of topics. So what's new, or what's new with the new Chancellor Merz and also our Prime Minister Markus Söder here in Munich is that they have a good relationship again. So it wasn't the case until the last Merkel government. There was some friction because of topics like migration. So there were different views on how to handle it. And for the first time, Friedrich Merz and Markus Söder are on a mutual basis. They have a mutual respect. Söder endorsed Merz, which was also not the case when we look at the last federal election. So they're very friendly again together, and they want to push Germany forward as a strong couple, as a strong unity. And what they do have in common are also three main topics, which is bolster the economy again, and limit or handle the migration, and ensure security again. So within Germany, as I said, we had 4 terror attacks within 2 months. So it was 3 months. It was very frequently, and we are not used to it. Luckily, we have to say, but also we don't want to get used to it. So we have to be a bit stricter when it comes to migration, and also ensure security on a defense capacity level, and enhance Germany's strength on state level, but also on EU level, and even worldwide. So one thing both parties are considering is the reintroduction of the conscription, which is not clear whether it's going to happen or not, but it's being talked of again. So I would say these are the 3 most common goals both parties want to achieve.
And as I mentioned before, Alternative für Deutschland, or the AfD party, came in second. I think a lot of Americans don't understand why Germans see this party as so dangerous. Christiana, could you explain to an American audience why the CDU-CSU pledged not to form a coalition government with the AfD?
Of course. Here I would refer to what Friedrich Merz said earlier. He said there won't be any coalition under his leadership between the CDU and the AfD, because he doesn't work with a xenophobic and anti-Semitic party, which has right-wing extremists and criminals as their members. And they don't, or we don't want to work with a party which is Russian-friendly and wants to pull out of NATO and of the European Union and of the euro. So I think, that says it all. But also Merz said earlier in Jan that the firewall will hold with him, so that there is no chance that the CDU or CSU is going to cooperate with the AfD on any level.
Right. And just for our American audience, the firewall is sort of a gentleman's agreement among the leaders of the major parties in Germany that they will not form a coalition government with the AfD. Do I have that right?
Yes, you do, correctly.
And Sibel, Do you think Elon Musk's and Vice President Vance's support for the AfD hurt them on election day, helped them on election day, or had no effect?
No, it had not any effect at all, actually. So you can clearly see that the polls before Musk and Vance's election recommendations show the same numbers as the actual results in the federal election. And I believe in December was the first time that Musk made such a recommendation for the AfD in an op-ed in a German newspaper. And at that time, the polls showed between 20 and 21% for the AfD. So when we're looking at the results of the election right now, we don't see any differences, actually. And also, I don't think that the average voter in Germany would be swayed by an election recommendation from someone from another country. And in general, endorsements are not common in Germany. I mean, it's not like in the US where newspapers endorse a particular candidate or something like that. We don't have things like that in Germany.
Now, America is largely a two-party country where the winner of the plurality is the one that takes the White House. Sibel, what is the process in Germany to form a coalition government? And with which parties do you anticipate the CDU and CSU will form a government?
De facto, the CDU-CSU only has the option of forming a coalition with the Social Democratic Party, short SPD. And well, in purely mathematical terms, a coalition with the AfD would also be possible, but as Christiane explained before, this is ruled out. And well, it would also be possible to make a coalition with the Greens and maybe also the Left Party. And especially with the Greens, Friedrich Merz didn't rule out a coalition with them, but it's not an option to make a coalition with them and the Left Party. So this is not an option. So it's very, very likely that there will be a coalition with the SPD. So when it comes to the process of forming a coalition, we have several steps. The first step will be exploratory talks. So parties engage in a preliminary discussion to identify potential common ground and viable coalition partners. So as previously mentioned, the only viable coalition partner is actually the SPD. And right now, these kind of exploratory talks are happening. And the next step are coalition negotiations. Once compatible partners are identified, in our case the SPD, the formal negotiations take place. And they are drafting together a coalition agreement. So this agreement outlines the government's policy agenda and the distribution of ministerial positions. The next step is the approval process. The negotiated agreement requires endorsement from the respective parties' leadership bodies, or in some cases also from the entire membership. For example, at the SPD, it is mandatory that all members of the party have to approve the coalition agreement. And the last step will be the election of the chancellor. So the Bundestag elects the chancellor, which is usually the lead of the candidate of the dominant coalition party, in our case, Friedrich Merz. And the chancellor then appoints ministers to form the government. And that's the process to form a government in Germany.
And when I left Munich last week, one of the things that was happening with the coalition talks was a discussion of possibly lifting the Schuldenbremse, or the debt brake. Is that conversation still ongoing?
It's still an ongoing discussion, actually, especially when it comes to defense spending. But right now, it looks that they will get another what we call Sondervermögen, like an extra budget for defense spending. So it's not solved already, but the discussion is ongoing.
And soon after the preliminary results were announced, Friedrich Merz urged Europe to achieve strategic independence from the United States as an ardent Atlanticist. That was a shocking and frankly dispiriting moment. Sibel, what do you think a Merz chancellorship is going to mean for Germany's defense posture?
A Friedrich Merz-led government will aim to make Germany more geopolitically assertive, while also reinforcing its commitment to transatlantic security. So his policy will focus on strengthening the Bundeswehr, what we call our troops here. It will focus on deepening European defense cooperation and also maintaining close coordination with NATO allies, particularly the United States and the United Kingdom. When it comes to the support for Ukraine, the government will continue diplomatic, financial, humanitarian, and military aid to Ukraine. And the union, we call, the CDU and CSU, we call the union, just shortly in Germany. So the union recognizes that Ukraine is also defending Europe's freedom, which is very important. And Germany will also, under Friedrich Merz, advocate for Ukraine's EU accession. The union will also engage in any future peace process, especially from a position of strength for Ukraine. And this process should be backed by credible security guarantees. When it comes to the Bundeswehr, Merz plans to have full operational readiness and to expand the armed forces, and also to reinstate conscription. And it's also planned that the government will invest in a drone force and invest in space defense capabilities. And Germany should be a leader in emerging defense technologies. Another thing is that Germany will, of course, uphold its NATO commitments, ensuring at least 2% of GDP for defense spendings. And we will also work very closely with our partners, especially the partners France and Poland. Together with Germany, we call this alliance the Weimar Triangle. You maybe heard of that. Mm-hmm. And it will be a central pillar of European security policy.
That is excellent to hear. And one of the things that I seem to feel back at the Munich Security Conference was extraordinary resolve. I mean, I've been watching Europe for more years than I cared to remember or to admit here. And this was the first time when Europeans talked about a European defense force, beefing up the military, that it felt like this time it's really going to happen. There was resolve behind the words. So, Christiana, is there anything you'd like to add to what you've told us?
Maybe when you said you saw more European unity, also Merz said that basically it's our last chance to act now, or otherwise it will be acted for us, I would say. So in Germany we said, it's going to be a decisive election, and from that on, what happens basically will go in a good way or in a very bad way. And I think this time it's true. So there's, I think, a lot of pressure for all the coalition parties to do a good job, basically, or otherwise we will, I don't know, next time have a different outcome in our next federal elections. And I think also you said it at the beginning that our voter turnout was so high. Yes. We see that it's that's important to act, and I think there, at least the German government has really the vote of of its people. So, yeah.
I'm cautiously optimistic. I really am. And Sibel, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Yes, and just to understand Germany a little better, it's important to know that for many decades, Germany's security policy was shaped by a culture of military restraint, which is deeply rooted in our history of World War II and the time before. So this is the reason why Germany holds back so much. However, given today's geopolitical realities, Germany now recognizes that this approach must evolve, and that Germany and Europe are aware of the growing security challenges and very committed to taking greater responsibility for their own defense. And this includes, of course, strengthening our military, the capabilities, deepening European cooperation, and all in all, a total rethinking of the strategic approach of Germany. So transatlantic ties will remain a cornerstone of our security policy, of course, but Germany and Europe are very, very aware of what they have to do now, and yes, they will do their homework.
Mm-hmm. And you see the same exact evolution happening in Japan also, which had previously restrained itself because of World War II, and now they're becoming one of the major defense manufacturing hubs for Australia. So it's time. Well, I want to thank you both, Christiane and Sibel, for joining us for the first 2025 Women's History Month video at ALEC. This is a tradition for us. And we're so grateful for ALEC's partnership with the Hanns Seidel Stiftung. And we appreciate your taking the time to help our members understand Germany's political landscape a little better. We also look forward to inviting you back once the coalition is formed. We want to hear your insights then as well. So thank you.
Thank you very much for having us.
Yes,
always a pleasure.
Thank you for let us being part of your tradition. So yeah, thanks a lot.
Thanks.